Nobody at Westfield Crown Mall in Chicago, Illinois expected chaos that afternoon. The place was designed for comfort and quiet wealth. Polished marble floors, soft instrumental music, glass storefronts displaying watches worth more than most people's cars. Shoppers moved calmly from store to store, carrying branded bags, sipping coffee, living ordinary lives inside an extraordinary space. Before we continue, take a quick second to support the channel. These stories take time, care, and real effort to create. If you enjoy powerful billionaire stories like this one, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join our community. It helps the channel grow, and lets us keep bringing you stories that matter. Thank you. Now, let's continue. That was when Ethan Caldwell walked in. Ethan was a white American billionaire heir, the kind of man whose last name opened doors before he spoke. His family controlled real estate developments across the Midwest. To the public, he was successful, sharp, untouchable. To those who knew him closely, he was dangerous in quieter ways. Ethan wasn't in the mall to shop. He was angry, distracted, still burning from a past he thought he had buried. Then he saw her. Standing near a boutique window was Claire Mitchell. Pregnant. Alone. One hand resting protectively on her stomach. For a brief second, the noise of the mall faded. Ethan's chest tightened as old memories rushed back. Arguments, control, the moment he walked away from her when she told him she was pregnant months earlier. In his mind, Claire was supposed to be broken by now. Struggling. Ashamed. Begging. Instead, she stood tall. She looked calmer than he remembered. Stronger. Dressed simply but confidently, her posture steady, her expression composed. That calm made something snap inside him. Ethan walked toward her without hesitation. "Claire," he said loudly, his voice sharp enough to turn heads. She turned slowly, recognition flashing across her face. Not fear. Not excitement. Just awareness. "Ethan," she replied evenly. That was all it took. The restraint he never truly had collapsed. "So this is what you're doing now," he sneered. "Walking around pretending everything worked out?" People nearby slowed their steps. Some stopped entirely. Claire kept her voice low. "This isn't the place." Ethan laughed, bitter and cruel. "You didn't mind making scenes when you needed my money." That was a lie, but truth had never mattered to him. She shifted her weight, subtly stepping back. "Please. Just leave me alone." The word "please" hit his ego like an insult. "Or what?" he shot back. "You'll cry again. Tell another story about how I ruined your life." Shoppers were openly watching now. Phones appeared. Security glanced over but didn't move. Claire's hand tightened against her stomach. "I'm not here for you," she said quietly. "I just want to go home." That should have ended it. Instead, Ethan stepped closer. "You really think you can just walk away from me?" he said. "After everything?" His voice rose. The mall felt smaller, tighter. Claire tried to step around him. And that's when it happened. In a flash of anger, Ethan shoved her. Not hard enough to send her flying, but hard enough. Claire stumbled backward, gasping, instinctively curling her body as she struggled to keep her balance. A woman nearby screamed. Someone shouted, "Hey!" Claire nearly fell. Her hands flew to her stomach as she caught herself against a display stand, her face draining of color. The mall went silent. For a split second, Ethan looked around, realizing how many eyes were on him. Then he scoffed. "Don't act like a victim," he muttered. "You're always good at that." Security finally moved forward. "Sir." "I'm leaving," Ethan snapped, already backing away. "This is ridiculous." Claire stood frozen, shaking, not from fear, but from shock. From the weight of the moment. from the realization that the past she survived had just exposed itself again in public. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She simply took a slow breath and steadied herself. And that confused everyone. Because this wasn't a woman collapsing. This was a woman enduring. As Ethan turned and walked away, convinced he had once again proven dominance, he missed the most important detail of all. Claire pulled out her phone. Her hands were steady as she typed a single message. It happened. I'm okay. I'm still at the mall. She didn't add details. She didn't need to. Across the city, in a quiet office overlooking Lake Michigan, another man read that message. A man Ethan Caldwell had never prepared to face. And as the mall cameras continued recording, as witnesses whispered, as security filed reports, one truth quietly settled into place. This moment wasn't the end of Claire Mitchell's story. It was the beginning of Ethan Caldwell's downfall. Claire Mitchell sat on a cushioned bench near the center atrium of Westfield Crown Mall, her breathing slow and controlled. Around her, the mall slowly returned to motion. People whispered. A few glanced her way with sympathy. Others pretended nothing had happened, eager to move on from discomfort. Security stood nearby now, asking quiet questions, offering water, filing reports. Claire answered calmly. Yes. No, I didn't fall. I'm okay. And she was, at least physically. But inside, something old had stirred. Not fear. Not heartbreak. Memory. Ethan Caldwell had always assumed she disappeared after he left. That she faded into regret the way he wanted her to. He never once considered that she might have built a life without him. Because men like Ethan rarely imagine futures where they are irrelevant. Claire rested a hand over her stomach, feeling the steady reassurance of movement beneath her palm. That small life grounded her. Reminded her why she stayed calm. Why she never reacted the way people expected. Her phone vibrated. Daniel, I'm on my way. That was all. No panic. No questions. Daniel Harper never needed details. Claire closed her eyes briefly. 6 months earlier, her life had looked nothing like this. After Ethan walked out on her, cold, dismissive, already mentally gone, Claire had packed what she could fit into her car and left New York City behind. She drove west with no plan except distance. She didn't tell Ethan where she was going. He didn't ask. She ended up in Evanston, Illinois, just north of Chicago. Quiet streets. Lake Heir. A sense of space she hadn't known she needed. At first, she worked remotely, freelancing, rebuilding her confidence piece by piece. Prenatal appointments. Therapy. Long walks along the water. And then came the meeting that changed everything. It wasn't dramatic. She met Daniel Harper at a charity planning session hosted by a local foundation. He didn't announce himself. No entourage. No show of wealth. Just a calm man in his early 40s, neatly dressed, observant, polite. They talked about logistics, donations, community housing. She didn't know until weeks later that Daniel Harper was one of the largest private real estate investors in the United States. That he quietly owned half the commercial buildings downtown. That politicians returned his calls immediately. Daniel never corrected her assumptions. He never used his name as leverage. They talked again. Then again. And over time, something unfamiliar to Claire began to grow. Safety. Daniel listened. Really listened. He never interrupted. Never raised his voice. Never dismissed her experiences. When she told him she was pregnant, she braced for disappointment. Instead, he smiled gently and said, "Thank you for trusting me with that." Months later, they married privately at a lakeside courthouse. No press. No announcements. Claire kept her last name. Daniel didn't care. When Ethan had shoved her earlier that afternoon, Claire felt the old instinct to shrink, an instinct she no longer lived by. Because she wasn't alone anymore. Across the city, Daniel Harper stood from his desk, jacket already in hand. His assistant looked up. "Sir." "Clear my schedule," Daniel said calmly. "And call mall management." "Yes, sir." Daniel paused, then added, and have legal notify Caldwell Holdings will be suspending all negotiations effective immediately. The assistant hesitated. All of them. Daniel met his gaze. All. Back at the mall, Ethan Caldwell drove away convinced he had won something. In his mind, the moment was already over. A minor incident. A woman from his past stirring unnecessary drama. He had meetings to attend. Deals to close. He didn't check his phone. Didn't notice the first email. Didn't see the second. By the time he reached his penthouse office overlooking downtown Chicago, his assistant was waiting, tense, pale. "Ethan," she said carefully, "we have a situation." He dropped his keys onto the desk. "Make it quick." She swallowed. "Daniel Harper has withdrawn from the Riverfront redevelopment project." Ethan froze. "What?" "And the North Loop acquisition," she added. "And the Midtown partnership." That got his attention. "You're saying he pulled out of everything?" Ethan snapped. "Yes. And his legal team has requested an urgent meeting." Ethan laughed, uneasy. "Over what?" His assistant hesitated. They mentioned an incident at Westfield Crown Mall. The room felt suddenly smaller. "Who the hell is Daniel Harper?" Ethan demanded. The silence that followed was heavy. "You really don't know?" she asked quietly. Ethan's confidence cracked for the first time that day. Back at the mall, Claire rose slowly as footsteps approached. Daniel Harper appeared at the edge of the atrium, tall, composed, eyes locked on her. He crossed the space without urgency, his presence commanding without force. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. She nodded. "I am." He looked at her stomach, then back at her face. Relief flickered briefly before his expression settled into calm resolve. He placed a hand gently at the small of her back. Then he turned, finally, to the security staff. "I'll take it from here," he said. "No threats. No anger. Just certainty." And somewhere in Chicago, Ethan Caldwell was about to learn the truth. The woman he thought he could humiliate had married a man who didn't need to raise his voice. Because his power spoke for him. Daniel Harper didn't announce himself when he arrived at Westfield Crown Mall. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't demand attention. And yet, the atmosphere changed the moment he stepped forward. Mall management moved first. Store supervisors whispered into radios. Security straightened their posture. Phones were silenced. Someone quietly closed the glass doors at the main entrance. Daniel stood beside Claire, one hand resting protectively at her back, his presence steady and grounding. "I want a full incident report," he said calmly to the head of security. "Camera footage included. No edits." "Yes, sir," the man replied immediately. Claire noticed the shift. Not fear, respect. Daniel turned to her. "Do you need to sit?" "I'm fine," she said softly. He nodded, trusting her judgment without question. Across the city, Ethan Caldwell paced his office, phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care who he is," Ethan snapped. "You don't pull out of contracts without explanation." On the other end, his legal counsel hesitated. "Ethan, Daniel Harper isn't just another investor." Ethan scoffed. "Everyone bleeds money." There was a pause. "He doesn't," the lawyer said carefully. "He controls it." Ethan stopped pacing. "What does that mean?" "It means," the lawyer continued, "that if Harper disengages publicly, others will follow. And they already are." Ethan's phone buzzed again. Then again. Emails. Missed calls. Notifications stacking faster than he could read them. Back at the mall, Daniel was already on the phone. Quiet, precise. "Yes," he said. "We'll proceed with a civil filing. Emotional distress. Endangerment. Public incident." Pause. "No," Daniel added. "No settlement discussions yet." Claire watched him, not with awe, but with gratitude. This was the difference. Ethan reacted emotionally. Daniel acted deliberately. By evening, the footage leaked. Not through gossip blogs. Through official channels. Security camera angles showed everything. Ethan approaching, shouting, shoving. Claire stumbling, protecting her stomach. No edits. No commentary. Just truth. By nightfall, Caldwell Holdings began trending. Not for success. For scandal. Ethan stared at his screen as headlines appeared. Billionaire heir accused in mall altercation with pregnant woman witnesses confirm aggressive behavior. Corporate partners reevaluate ties. His phone rang again. This time, it was his father. "What did you do?" the older man asked, voice cold. "It's being blown out of proportion," Ethan snapped. "She provoked me." There was a long silence. "You embarrassed us," his father said finally. "And worse, you exposed us." The line went dead. Ethan sat down heavily. Across town, Daniel and Claire returned home to their quiet lakefront residence in Evanston. Daniel poured her water. Sat across from her. "I want you to tell me everything," he said gently. "Not for the case. For you." And she did. She told him about the years with Ethan, the control disguised as charm, the way he decided things without asking, the moment he walked away when she told him she was pregnant. Daniel listened without interrupting. When she finished, he reached across the table and took her hand. "He doesn't get to define you anymore," he said. "And he never will again." The next morning, the collapse accelerated. Banks requested emergency reviews. Boards postponed meetings. Investors distanced themselves publicly. Ethan arrived at a conference room to find half the seats empty. "Where is everyone?" he demanded. No one answered. Later that day, he finally received the request he feared. Daniel Harper. Formal meeting request. Location: Harper Group Headquarters, Chicago. Ethan arrived expecting intimidation. What he found instead was calm. Daniel sat at the head of a long table, hands folded, expression unreadable. Lawyers lined the walls, not aggressive, just prepared. Ethan forced a smile. "This has gone far enough." Daniel met his gaze. "No," he said quietly. "This is where it begins." Ethan leaned forward. "What do you want?" Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents, withdrawn contracts, frozen negotiations, regulatory inquiries triggered by public scrutiny. Ethan's confidence drained page by page. "This isn't personal," Daniel said. "You made it public. I'm simply responding appropriately." "You're destroying my company," Ethan said, voice tight. Daniel nodded slightly. "Consequences often feel that way." Ethan slammed his hand on the table. "She's exaggerating. I barely touched her." Daniel's eyes hardened, not with anger, but finality. "You touched my wife," he said, "and endangered my child." The room went silent. Ethan swallowed. "For the first time," Daniel continued, "you're not in control. And that bothers you." Daniel stood. "This meeting is over. Our attorneys will handle the rest." As Ethan was escorted out, his phone buzzed one last time. A notification from his bank. Account access temporarily restricted, pending review. Ethan stared at the screen, disbelief setting in. Across the city, Claire stood by the window, watching the lake shimmer under evening light. She wasn't celebrating. She was healing. Because the most powerful revenge she ever took was surviving, rebuilding, and choosing better. And Ethan Caldwell was about to learn that some losses don't recover. They redefine you. The fallout didn't come all at once. It came in waves. Ethan Caldwell woke up the morning after the meeting with Daniel Harper expecting damage control, calls, negotiations, maybe a public apology strategy. Instead, he woke up to silence. No overnight emails from partners. No supportive messages from board members. No reassurance from legal. Just headlines. Caldwell Holdings under federal review following public incident. Major investors suspend ties amid reputation risk. Sources say internal leadership crisis brewing. Ethan sat at the edge of his bed, phone trembling slightly in his hand. For the first time in his life, money wasn't moving when he told it to. At Caldwell Holdings headquarters, the atmosphere was cold. Executives avoided eye contact. Assistants whispered behind glass walls. Meetings were postponed indefinitely. By noon, the board called an emergency session, without Ethan present. When he was finally summoned, The decision was already made. "We're placing you on temporary leave," the chairman said carefully, "until the investigations conclude." "Temporary?" Ethan scoffed. "This is my company." The chairman folded his hands. "It was your behavior that put it at risk." Ethan laughed, hollow and sharp. "You're choosing them over me?" "No," the man replied. "We're choosing survival." The vote was unanimous. Ethan walked out of the room knowing something had permanently shifted. Across the city, Claire Mitchell sat in a sunlit living room in Evanston, her feet propped gently on an ottoman, hands resting on her stomach. Daniel sat nearby, reviewing documents quietly. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Tired," she admitted. "But peaceful." And she was. The case moved forward without spectacle. Daniel didn't leak statements, didn't give interviews, didn't posture. He didn't need to. The evidence spoke. Witnesses testified. Footage circulated. Ethan's own words resurfaced in old emails and texts, patterns of behavior no one had bothered to confront before. The narrative shifted. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a man finally being seen clearly. Weeks later, the settlement offer came. A large one. Daniel read it once, then slid it aside. "No," he said simply. Claire looked at him. "Are you sure?" "Yes," he replied. "This isn't about money." The case went to court. Ethan sat alone at the defense table, his once polished image reduced to stress and exhaustion. No family. No allies. Just lawyers doing their job. Across the aisle, Claire stood composed, supported, steady. When she testified, she didn't dramatize. She told the truth. And that was enough. The ruling didn't ruin Ethan financially overnight. It did something worse. It followed him. Banks flagged him. Boards hesitated. Invitations stopped coming. His name became a liability. By the end of the year, Caldwell Holdings announced a restructuring, new leadership, new direction, public distancing. Ethan resigned quietly. No press conference. No farewell. Just a name removed from the building. Months later, on a quiet autumn morning, Claire gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Daniel held her hand through every moment. When the nurse asked for the father's name, Daniel smiled. "I'm right here." They named the child Michael Harper. Outside, Lake Michigan shimmered under pale sunlight. Life moved forward. One evening, Claire and Daniel walked along the shoreline, the baby asleep in a stroller between them. "Do you ever think about him?" Claire asked. Daniel considered the question. "No," he said honestly. "He already took enough of your past. He doesn't get your future." Claire smiled, feeling the weight of years finally lift. Across the city, Ethan Caldwell sat alone in a dim apartment, scrolling through old photos, galas, parties, power frozen in time. None of it mattered now. He wasn't destroyed by violence. He wasn't defeated by revenge. He was undone by exposure, by consequences, by a woman he once believed would never rise again. And somewhere in Chicago, a man who never raised his voice proved a final truth. Real power doesn't humiliate. It protects. And it always arrives quietly.